The worn soles of his sneakers know every crack in the pavement, every loose stone, every subtle incline of the quiet neighborhood streets. Each night, after the last page of homework is turned and his younger siblings are settled, the backpack reappears, not with textbooks, but with carefully packed groceries. This is Jamal's other education, the one taught in hushed gratitude and the flickering porch lights of the elderly. He does this because he must, because someone has to, because the promise he made to himself, to give more than he takes, echoes with every steady footfall. Rain, cold, the bone-deep weariness from a day that started before dawn. None of it matters as much as the rhythm, the purpose. But tonight, something is different. A subtle disturbance in the familiar quiet. Unseen eyes are watching his every move, a silent witness to his solitary ritual, and that observation is about to change everything. Before we dive into this story, let us know where you're watching from in the comments below, and if you believe quiet genius always finds a way, hit that like button and subscribe for more. Jamal is 17, a young man carrying the weight of responsibilities that would bow many adults. His days are a careful choreography of school, where he excels quietly, chores at home, and the constant, gentle supervision of his younger sister, Maya, and brother, Leo. His mother, Maria, works 2 jobs, her strength a quiet beacon in their small apartment, but her exhaustion is a tangible presence. The absence of his father, lost too soon, carved a hollow in their lives that Jamal tries to fill with diligence and an unspoken commitment to ease his mother's burdens. He dreams, of course, of college, of engineering, of a future where the numbers in their bank account don't dictate every decision. But those dreams are often deferred, tucked away beneath the more immediate needs of his family and community. He walks these miles, night after night, because the small stipends he receives from the families he helps, and sometimes just the heartfelt thanks, are contributions he can make. It's his way of fighting back against the encroaching shadows of hardship until a single moment, an unexpected encounter, is poised to flip everything they thought they knew. But what happened next would change everything. Jamal's past was etched with the quiet dignity of struggle. He learned early that life didn't hand out favors, especially not in their part of town. His intelligence was a keen blade, often hidden beneath a reserved demeanor, but his teachers saw it, a spark of brilliance in his insightful questions, in the meticulousness of his work. He'd once aced a statewide physics exam, a feat that surprised everyone but Mrs. Davison, his physics teacher, who had long recognized his untapped potential. "You have a gift, Jamal," she told him, her gaze earnest. "Don't let circumstances dim it." He held on to those words, a small ember of hope in the daily grind. His worldview was shaped by observation, by the resilience of his mother, and by the quiet struggles of the elderly neighbors he served. He understood empathy not as an abstract concept but as a lived reality, the tremor in Mrs. Gable's hand as she reached for her milk, the way Mr. Henderson's eyes lit up when Jamal took a few extra minutes to listen to his stories of the old days. These were the people who populated his world, their lives interwoven with his own. His closest ally, his confidant, was his mother, Maria. Their bond was forged in shared grief and unspoken understanding. She saw the man he was becoming, the quiet strength he possessed, and her heart ached with a mixture of pride and worry. "You do too much, Mijo," she'd often say, her hand gently brushing his cheek. "You need to have a childhood." But she also knew his spirit, his innate sense of responsibility. His younger sister, Maya, all of 10 years old, adored him. To her, Jamal was a hero, the one who could fix her broken toys, help with her math, and tell the best bedtime stories, his voice a low, comforting rumble. He was her protector, her steady presence. The antagonist, in its most immediate form, wasn't a person but the pervasive, grinding reality of their circumstances, the constant threat of bills unpaid, of opportunities lost simply due to lack of resources. But a new, more specific unease had begun to prickle at the edges of Jamal's awareness. For the past week, he'd occasionally glimpsed a dark, expensive-looking car idling on a side street or turning a corner a block behind him during his delivery rounds. He dismissed it at first, coincidences happened. But the car, sleek and silent, felt out of place in these familiar, working-class streets. It was a silent, imposing presence, a metallic shark in a pond of minnows, and it made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. He hadn't mentioned it to his mother, no need to add to her worries. Their neighborhood was a tapestry of small, tightly packed houses and low-rise apartment buildings, a place where everyone knew everyone else's business, yet a strong sense of community prevailed. Children played on the sidewalks. The scent of various dinners wafted from open windows in the summer, and in winter, neighbors helped shovel each other's walkways. Jamal's deliveries took him through these streets, a familiar figure with his backpack and determined stride. Mrs. Rodriguez, a tiny woman with a sharp mind and a kind heart, lived at the end of his longest route. She often had a cup of sweet tea waiting for him. "You're a good boy, Jamal," she'd said just last week, her eyes crinkling at the corners. "Mark my words, you're meant for great things. This world needs more like you." He'd simply smiled, thanked her for the tea, and continued on his way, her words of fleeting warmth against the encroaching chill of the evening. He carried more potential than most realized, a quiet force moving through the twilight. One cool Tuesday evening, the catalyst arrived, not with a bang, but with the smooth purr of an engine. Jamal was on his last delivery, heading to Mr. Henderson's house on Elm Street. The backpack felt lighter, the day's weariness settling deep in his bones. He turned onto Elm, a tree-lined street usually deserted at this hour, and there it was again, the dark luxury car, parked halfway down the block, engine running. This time, it wasn't just a fleeting glimpse. As he passed, the car pulled out, its headlights cutting through the dusk, and fell in slowly behind him. Jamal's heart began to thud against his ribs. This was no coincidence. He was being followed. His mind raced. The fleeting, uneasy sightings of the car over the past week coalesced into a singular, unnerving certainty. He wasn't imagining it. Fear, cold and sharp, pricked at him. Why him? What had he done? He was just delivering groceries. He thought of his mother, of Maya and Leo. He considered darting down an alley, taking a longer, more convoluted route. But a stubborn sense of righteousness, the knowledge that he was doing nothing wrong, anchored him. He would stick to his routine. He quickened his pace almost imperceptibly, his senses on high alert, every shadow seeming to lengthen, every rustle of leaves sounding like a footstep. As he reached Mr. Henderson's gate, the car glided to a stop beside him. The tinted passenger window whispered down, revealing a man in a sharp suit, his features shadowed in the dim light. Jamal braced himself, his hand tightening on the strap of his backpack. This was it. Long night. The man's voice was calm, neutral, not overtly threatening, but Jamal felt the power imbalance like a physical weight. Jamal swallowed, trying to keep his own voice steady. "Just about done, sir." "You do this often?" the man continued, his gaze unwavering. "Every night, almost," Jamal replied, his wariness battling his ingrained politeness. "Just helping out some of the folks around here." He nodded towards Mr. Henderson's porch light, a small beacon of familiarity in the sudden, strange spotlight. The man in the car, Mr. Arthur Harrison, CEO of a prominent technology firm, had indeed been observing Jamal for several nights. His initial sighting had been pure chance, a detour through an unfamiliar neighborhood after a late meeting. He'd seen the boy, laden with a backpack, walking with a steady, determined rhythm, and something about the scene, the quiet dedication, the solitary figure against the backdrop of the sleeping city, had piqued his curiosity. He'd seen him again the next night, and the next. Awe had begun to replace curiosity. Now, face to face, Harrison studied the young man before him. "Helping out," he echoed, a hint of something unreadable in his tone. "Why?" Jamal hesitated, unsure how much to reveal to this stranger, however well-dressed. "They need it," he said simply. "Some of them can't get out on their own anymore. And it helps my family a little too." Honesty, direct and unadorned. Harrison was silent for a moment, then he reached into his breast pocket and produced a sleek business card. "My name is Arthur Harrison," he said, holding it out. "I'd like to talk to you more about this operation you're running." Jamal took the card, his fingers brushing against the expensive, embossed paper. Harrison Industries. CEO. A wave of disbelief washed over him. What would a CEO want with him? "Call my office tomorrow morning," Harrison continued. "My assistant will schedule a time for us to meet. I might have something for you." With a nod, Harrison's window glided up, and the car pulled away, leaving Jamal standing by Mr. Henderson's gate, the business card feeling heavy and unreal in his hand. He delivered Mr. Henderson's groceries, his mind a whirl of confusion, fear, and a tiny, to-be-named flicker of hope. When he got home, his mother was in the kitchen, her brow furrowed over a stack of bills. He showed her the card, recounted the strange encounter. Maria listened, her initial alarm giving way to a cautious intrigue. Together, they looked up Harrison Industries online, a major tech company, philanthropic initiatives, but also stories of a demanding, no-nonsense CEO. "What do you think he wants, Mama?" Jamal asked, the anxiety gnawing at him. Maria looked at her son, at the earnestness in his eyes, the weariness around them. "I don't know, Mijo," she said softly, placing a comforting hand on his arm. "But you did nothing wrong. You were helping people. If he wants to talk, you talk. Be honest. Be yourself." The next morning, with a dry mouth and a pounding heart, Jamal made the call. Harrison's assistant was polite, efficient, and scheduled a meeting for him the following afternoon. The Harrison Industries building was a gleaming tower of glass and steel, a world away from Jamal's neighborhood. Walking into the opulent lobby, he felt acutely aware of his worn jeans and slightly faded T-shirt, even though he'd chosen his cleanest, neatest clothes. He was escorted to the top floor, to an office larger than his entire apartment, with a panoramic view of the city. Mr. Harrison sat behind a vast mahogany desk, his demeanor formal, almost stern. He gestured for Jamal to sit. The next hour was an interrogation, albeit a polite one. Harrison asked about his schoolwork, his family, his deliveries, who he helped, how he managed the logistics, what he charged, how he spent the money. He probed Jamal's motivations, his aspirations. Jamal answered honestly, his initial nervousness slowly giving way to a quiet resolve. He spoke of Mrs. Gable's arthritis, Mr. Henderson's failing eyesight, the loneliness he sometimes sensed behind their polite requests for bread or eggs. He explained how he tried to combine routes to save time, how he kept a mental inventory of who liked which brand of coffee. Harrison listened, his expression unreadable. At one point, he leaned forward. "A lot of kids your age are just looking for handouts, Jamal. Or they do things for recognition. What makes you different?" Jamal met his gaze directly. "I just do what needs to be done, sir," he said, his voice low but firm. "For my family, for Mrs. Gable and Mr. Henderson and the others. It's not about handouts, and I'm not looking for a medal. It's about helping. It's about connection, I guess." The meeting ended without any clear resolution. Harrison thanked him for his time, said he would be in touch. Jamal left the towering building feeling drained and uncertain. Had he said the right things? Had he sounded naive? He walked home slowly, the contrast between the CEO's world and his own stark and unsettling. He recounted the meeting to his mother, his voice tinged with doubt. "I don't think he was impressed, Mama." Maria hugged him tightly. "You spoke your truth, Jamal. That's all you can ever do. Whatever happens, I am proud of you." He did his deliveries that night with a heavy heart, the faces of his elderly neighbors a reaffirmation of his purpose. Mrs. Rodriguez, sensing his quiet mood, pressed a warm cookie into his hand. "Don't let the world weigh you down too much, child," she said gently. 2 days later, the phone rang. It was Harrison's assistant again. Mr. Harrison wanted to see him. Another meeting. Jamal's stomach twisted. This time, Harrison's demeanor was slightly different, a subtle shift Jamal couldn't quite decipher. "Jamal," he began, "your story is compelling. Your initiative undeniable. My company runs a scholarship program for exceptional young people, individuals who demonstrate not just academic promise but also character and leadership potential, often in unconventional ways." Jamal's breath caught in his throat. "A scholarship. There's one more step," Harrison continued, his eyes fixed on Jamal. "We have a small committee that makes the final decisions. I'd like you to make a presentation to them. Tell them about your delivery service, as you call it. Explain what it entails, what you've learned from it, what it means to you." A presentation. To a committee. The thought terrified Jamal. He wasn't a public speaker. What could he possibly say that would impress a group of powerful executives? The weight of expectation, the dizzying possibility of a scholarship, pressed down on him. This was it, the public test, the culmination of those quiet nights on a collision course with a future he hadn't dared to imagine. Jamal spent the next 3 days in a state of focused anxiety. The presentation loomed large, a gateway to a different life. He realized, as he tried to structure his thoughts, that Mr. Harrison wasn't just interested in the mechanics of his grocery runs. He was interested in the why, the how, the impact, not just on the elderly, but on Jamal himself. It was about character, problem-solving, empathy, and the quiet leadership he'd demonstrated without even realizing it. This was his chance to articulate the value of his unseen work, to give voice to the dignity he found in service. He didn't have a laptop or fancy presentation software. His visual aids consisted of a hand-drawn map of his neighborhood, marking his usual routes and the homes of the people he served. He wrote out bullet points on index cards, his handwriting neat and precise. His mother listened patiently as he practiced, offering quiet encouragement. Maya drew him a picture of himself with a superhero cape, carrying a bag of groceries, which made him smile despite the knot in his stomach. The night before the presentation, he almost skipped his deliveries, feeling the need to prepare more. But then he thought of Mrs. Gable, who would be waiting for her Friday paper and fresh milk. He thought of Mr. Henderson, who looked forward to their brief chats. He strapped on his backpack. The familiar rhythm of the walk, the cool night air, the quiet streets, it centered him. This was who he was. This was what he did. He felt the weight of expectation, the hopes of his family resting on his young shoulders, but also a burgeoning sense of purpose. He wasn't just Jamal, the kid from the struggling family. He was Jamal, the lifeline for a small, vulnerable community. And tomorrow, he would tell their story in his own. The boardroom was intimidating. Polished dark wood table, plush leather chairs, a view of the city that seemed to stretch to infinity. Jamal, dressed in his best button-down shirt and slacks his mother had carefully ironed, felt small and out of place. The committee members, 4 of them, including Mr. Harrison, sat opposite him, their expressions neutral, observant. Mr. Harrison gave him a brief, encouraging nod. Jamal took a deep breath and began. His voice trembled slightly at first. He spread his hand-drawn map on the table. "This is my neighborhood," he started, his finger tracing the streets he knew so well. He spoke about Mrs. Rodriguez and her stories of the old country, about Mr. Henderson's pride in his love for history, about Mrs. Gable's quiet courage in the face of constant pain. He explained how he learned to anticipate their needs, an extra can of soup when the weather turned cold, a specific brand of tea that soothed an upset stomach. He talked about optimizing his routes, not just for efficiency, but to ensure he had a few extra minutes for those who needed a listening ear. He didn't try to sound sophisticated or overly academic. He spoke from the heart, his words simple, direct. He described the logistics, yes, but he focused more on the human element, the connections forged over bags of groceries and brief porch-side conversations. He confessed his initial reluctance, how it had started as just a way to earn a little money, but how it had grown into something more, something that defined a part of him. He looked at their faces. One woman seemed to be studying his map intently. A man with glasses occasionally jotted down a note. Mr. Harrison's expression remained unreadable. For a moment, Jamal faltered. Was this too simple? Too ordinary? Then he remembered Mrs. Gable's grateful smile when he'd fixed her rattling screen door, unasked. He remembered Maya's drawing, his mother's tired but hopeful eyes. He found his conviction again. "It's not always easy," he admitted, his voice gaining strength. "Some nights I'm tired, or the weather's bad. But then I think about them, waiting. And I know I can't let them down. It's taught me about responsibility, about compassion. It's taught me that even small acts can make a big difference in someone's life." He paused, then concluded, his voice clear and steady. "It's not much, maybe, in the grand scheme of things. But it's what I could do. And it mattered to them. And it mattered to me." Silence descended on the boardroom. It stretched, taut and heavy. Jamal's heart hammered. Then, the woman who had been studying his map looked up, a small, genuine smile touching her lips. The man with glasses nodded slowly. Mr. Harrison finally spoke, his voice devoid of its earlier sternness. "Jamal," he said, a new warmth in his tone, "what you've demonstrated here, and out there on those streets every night, isn't just about delivering groceries. It's about profound initiative, unwavering responsibility, deep-seated empathy, and a quiet, effective form of leadership. These are precisely the qualities we look for, the qualities that build not just successful careers, but meaningful lives." He leaned forward slightly. "The committee is unanimous, Jamal. Harrison Industries would be honored to offer you a full academic scholarship to the university of your choice, along with a paid summer internship here, should you choose to accept." Jamal stared, stunned into silence. A full scholarship. An internship. The words echoed in the quiet room, monumental, life-altering. A slow smile spread across his face, a wave of emotion, disbelief, gratitude, overwhelming relief, washing over him. He looked at Mr. Harrison, his eyes shining, and managed a choked, "Thank you. Thank you, sir." A firm handshake sealed the moment. As soon as he stepped out of the boardroom, he called his mother. Her joyful, tearful cries on the other end of the line were the sweetest sound he had ever heard. Mr. Harrison later mentioned that Jamal's story had prompted the company to reevaluate its outreach programs, inspiring them to look for more unconventional talent and to consider new ways to support grassroots community efforts. Jamal was formally presented with the scholarship offer, and to his surprise, was asked for his input on how young people from similar backgrounds might be identified and encouraged. His voice, once quiet and unheard, now had a platform. The path ahead, college and a corporate internship, would undoubtedly have its own challenges, but the crushing financial burden that had shadowed his family for so long was lifted. Hope, bright and tangible, illuminated his future. A few days later, Jamal was back on his familiar route, backpack still on, though his steps felt lighter. As he handed Mrs. Rodriguez her groceries, she beamed, having heard the news that had spread like wildfire through their small, interconnected community. "I told you, child," she said, her eyes sparkling as she pulled him into a warm hug. "I told you. You were meant for great things." This old heart knew it. His success was his family's success. Maria looked at him with an immeasurable pride that made his own heart swell. Maya declared she wanted to be just like Jamal when she grew up, her small hand tucked firmly in his. Leo, usually a whirlwind of energy, just looked up at his big brother with wide, admiring eyes. The bonds of family, already strong, were now interwoven with a new layer of shared joy and possibility. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows and painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Jamal walked down his street. The worn sneakers still trod the familiar pavement, but now they carried not just the weight of groceries, but the promise of a future he had earned, step by painstaking step. Compassion had walked the miles. Opportunity, gratefully accepted, was now paving the way forward. He smiled, a genuine, unburdened smile, feeling the warmth of the fading light on his face. Thanks for watching till the end. If you enjoyed the story, give this video a like if you haven't already, and subscribe for more.